Breaking tonight, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is reporting Russia's heaviest personal losses yet in the war. Speaking alongside French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris, Zelensky said Russia has lost roughly 25,500 troops in the past 2 months alone, the highest since the conflict began. At the same time, Zelensky warned that Russian forces are making some advances on the battlefield, but the cost is staggering. This is not measured in meters or kilometers, he said, it's measured in people.
Without a doubt, Russia is making some advances. There are several offensive actions and operations on their side, but none of these operations have been successful. At the same time, heavy fighting is ongoing in Pokrovsk and other directions. For example, our forces have seen more success in the Kupiansk direction, even though Russia claims it has taken Kupiansk. In reality, we have almost completely cleared the city. We need to approach this information objectively. Russia has a large number of soldiers, but their heaviest losses came in the month before last, October, which saw the highest Russian military casualties in nearly 4 years of war. Video evidence confirms that around 25,500 Russian soldiers were killed.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is telling people to trust official updates from the Ukrainian General Staff for the latest on the front lines. He also urged caution when reading about Russian advances. While Moscow's forces are making some moves, Zelensky says Russia is paying a heavy price and the front line is constantly shifting back and forth. New report out of Ukraine tonight. The American satellite system Starlink is reportedly being used by Russian forces to guide drones across the Ukrainian territory, according to Ukrainian outlet Defense Express. Russian forces continue to use Starlink satellite terminals on their drones despite earlier efforts to block them. They are reportedly equipping drones to improve targeting of Ukrainian cities. At the same time, sources say the Pentagon has not yet been able to fully cut off Russia's access to this advanced technology. New images from the front lines show a mini Starlink terminal strapped to a Russian drone believed to be a version of the Molniya attack UAV. Observers spotted this drone in the Pokrovsk direction, and Ukrainian forces say such drones have been repeatedly seen in the air. The setup looks crude, held on with zip ties, suggesting either one of field figs or the Molniya platform's inherently low-cost design. Early models were literally built out of sticks. While this is the first time a Starlink terminal has been spotted on a Molniya, the use of Starlink by Russian drones is not new. Reports first surfaced in early 2024, with the proof soon following. The Pentagon says it has been working since May 2024 to limit Russia's access to Starlink, including creating a wide list of terminals for Ukraine and occupied areas while blocking others. By June, the US claimed to have disabled hundreds of unauthorized terminals, but despite these efforts, Russia continues to integrate Starlink into its weapons system. Russia is not backing down from its goals in the war against Ukraine and wants to achieve them, Kremlin officials say ahead of a meeting between President Vladimir Putin and US envoy Steve Witkoff. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov gave several statements before Witkoff's visit to Moscow, saying Russia is seeking a long-term settlement and praising efforts by the Trump administration. But despite talks expected to cover agreements reached between Washington and Kyiv, Moscow is not ready to make concessions.
Russia values the efforts of the Trump administration in trying to resolve the conflict in Ukraine. Moscow says it is open to peace talks, but insists it must achieve the goals set under its special military operation. Russia wants a settlement of the Ukrainian conflict that lasts for generations.
Remember, Moscow continues to exist to achieving its war goals in Ukraine. Since 2022, those goals have not changed and aim at the complete destruction of Ukraine as a sovereign state. Speaking at a press conference in Paris, President Volodymyr Zelensky said the discussion around a so-called peace plan for Ukraine are focused on three main issues, with the territorial question remaining the most difficult.
To be honest, the territorial issue is the most difficult. The question of funding for reconstruction is also complicated. Without European partners involved, it's not simple, because the money is held in Europe. I think that's not very fair. And then there's the issue of security guarantees, which is extremely important. We need concrete commitments from the United States and clear specifics from Europe.
The US reportedly plans to return frozen Russian assets held in Europe after the war, according to two senior diplomats' political reports. US officials made it clear to the EU sanctions envoy David O'Sullivan during his visit to Washington in summer 2025 that frozen Russian assets would be returned after any peace deal. But European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen continues plans to use those assets to fund Ukraine. On September 10th, she announced the EU would channel the funds through a reparation-style credit for Ukraine, aiming to put a European stamp on the process. When the details of Trump's original 28-point peace plan leaked in November, it showed that $100 billion from these assets was meant for Ukraine's reconstruction and investment under US supervision, with the remaining going to a separate US-Russia mechanism. Meanwhile, in the EU, member states are at odds over security guarantees for Belgium. Several countries are opposing unlimited guarantees that Belgium wants in order to unlock a loan to Ukraine. European governments accuse Belgium of making excessive demands, fearing that Moscow could file a claim over 140 billion euros in frozen Russian assets held in Brussels, intent for Ukrainian loan, political reports citing diplomats. According to Politico, the European Commission is set to release the legal framework for Ukraine loan, aiming to act before April to prevent Ukraine's military budget from running dry. EU leaders are expected to weigh in during a mid-December meeting. The so-called reparation loan is highly controversial in Belgium, as it would use the value of frozen Russian assets held in the country to fund Ukraine. Belgian Prime Minister Bart de Wever is demanding financial guarantees exceeded 140 billion euros, payable within days, and wants these guarantees to last longer than EU sanctions against Russia. While other EU governments are willing to back a pre-agreed amount, they refuse to give an open-ended commitment. Four EU diplomats told Politico they cannot accept de Wever's request, saying it would tie their country's financial stability to potential court rulings, possibly forcing them to pay billions years after the end of the war. Meanwhile, the European Central Bank has refused to back a 140 billion euro loan to Ukraine, which would have been secured by frozen Russian assets held in Belgium's Euroclear depository, sources tell the Financial Times. The European Central Bank has ruled that the European Commission's loan proposal violates its mandate, sources tell the Financial Times. Officials had asked the ECB to act as a lender for Euroclear Bank to prevent a liquidity crisis, but the bank concluded that the plan would effectively be direct financing for member states, as the regulator would be covering their obligations. In response, the European Commission is reportedly working on an alternative proposal to provide temporary liquidity and support the 140 billion euros loan to Ukraine. That's all for now. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your comments below.